Hey now, Petey Grizz here, hanging out with my producer, Minnie. Minnie's not feeling so good. She's getting old. She's an old timer, which means she's all of 2 years old, but that's getting old for mice. Starting to lose some hair and stuff. But she's a great little buddy. I love hanging out with her. Having a mouse, I've had rats too. Rats and mice, they get a bad rap, but as pets, it's just like having a little tiny puppy. They're just fantastic little pets. They love interacting with you. They love being held and cuddling and stuff. They love being pet. You can teach them to do tricks. I've seen rats that play basketball, do all kinds of stuff. Really cool animals. Definitely a cool pet. They're a cool pet because the fact that they don't live long is kind of helpful because, if you've got a transitory lifestyle or whatever reason, it's a pet. You don't gotta, it's not like getting a parrot or something that lives for 50 or 60 years, it lives for a couple of years and then they go their way. So, Minnie, you check, she loves Swiss Army knives. She's always got to check out new ones when I got them, which is what this is really about. I got my Monday, what do you call this, the Monday mailbag. So these are the knives I got over the last few days. Two of them came today, one came the other day. I have some others, but I already put them in a video, so I'll try to keep the repetitiveness to a minimum, even though these are models that I frequently get because I love them. Fantastic models. Let's start off with this guy here. We've got the Ambassador. No keychain on this guy. Love it. Simple little perfect slip in the fifth pocket. And if you're not familiar with the Ambassador, it's just a 74mm classic, basically. Same tool set as a classic, but just a tad longer. A little more substantial blade. Got our toothpick and tweezers there, as usual. I've always got either this or a 58 of some sort, sometimes a Wenger Esquire. Wenger. I still do that 50-50. I'm Wenger or Wenger. I believe Wenger is correct. Anyway, I do tend to get on a little tangent here and there. So we've got that nail file. As I've said before, play bass. Fingernails can easily cause problems playing bass or guitar. So I like to keep mine trimmed up with a nail file. Boom. We've got the main blade. And on this one, the wording is horizontal. On some of them, like some of the classics and stuff, it's written this way. I've seen it on 74s too. It's done horizontal. I guess we call all this vertical and the others are horizontal. Nothing on the back there. Adorable. Just like Minnie the mouse. Guess she's just going to sit there and clean herself on camera all the time. Usually she runs off and goes exploring the vast region of my desk and the few places she can get to from up there. She fell off the desk. I left a little bowl with a few crumbs of cookies in there for her, and she flipped the bowl over and flipped herself off the desk. Luckily, she doesn't run from me. I was able to scoop her up and put her right back. Their cage is actually open all the time, so they can just come and go as they please. Her sister never comes out of the cage. She's just afraid to. And Minnie comes out of the cage. I've even got a little house for her outside of the cage, so because her sister tends to over-groom her, which is why she has the bald spots. When they can sense when the other is sick and they just go to town grooming them, which is their way of dealing with diseases. But if they overdo it, they start to pull out hair and stuff like that. So I try to give them space so she can be separate. 74mm scissors. These are a great size of scissors. I mean, look, here is a 84mm pair of scissors. They're a little smaller, but they can do basically anything the 84mm scissors can do. The 58 scissors work fine too, but I find this is the perfect size of scissors. Still a very compact knife, doesn't take up much real estate in your pocket, but you still get all the advantages of having a little Swiss Army knife on you. Great companion to one of these larger knives. And by larger, I mean small, of course. And this is a Tiny Tinker. Or the Tinker Small. I think they missed the boat. I think the Tiny Tinker just sounds so cute. If I'm going to call it anything, it's the Tiny Tinker. It is a Hoffer. It's unfortunately, it's one of, not, I guess not unfortunately, but it just happens to be one of the later ones when they switch to a hot stamp from an inlay. So often you see the stamps where the paint is completely gone. That's probably from somebody trying to sand it up or polish it or something like that. Just polish the paint right off. No problem. Not a big deal. Got our tweezers. Got our toothpicker. Then we've got my favorite part of the Tiny Tinker, the square Phillips. Got that can key. The only way it'd be better if it had the file on it. Come on, guys. That file is fantastic. I love having the file on the screwdriver. The hook, not so much. I find I have trouble. The hook just kind of, it rubs me the wrong way when I use the nail file on the hook on my compact. Got the reamer with no sewing eye. How fantastic is that? Of course, we got our opening layer. We've got the cap lifter, flathead screwdriver, and a stripping notch. Oh yeah. We've got the can opener with the Phillips, 2D Phillips, small flathead. If you've never used one of these on a Phillips, I suggest giving it a try. I often find that I prefer using this over the backside Phillips for those guys that are diehard about they have to have a Phillips screwdriver. You know, that's why I can totally get away with carrying like a Ranger or a Huntsman or any variety with a corkscrew because the can opener gives you a Phillips. That's where I think the compact is a miss on not having the backside Phillips. When you have the combo tool, you lose the ability to drive Phillips screws, well, at least effectively. Anyway, let's get on to the most exciting part of any knife. The pen blade. Ugh. Yeah, it's all right. Does the job. Doesn't look as cool as a clip blade. Isn't as useful for me as a nail file. But there she is anyway. And then we've got the big boy. That lovely blade. There she is. Mrs. Minnie Mouse. The Victorinox 4-line tank stamp. The crossbow. The cross. Officier Suisse. Officer's knife. Tiny Tinker. This happens to be, there's some debate about what specific tinker MacGyver used in the first episode. A lot of guys are MacGyver fans. Love the Tinker small because it's what he carried in the first episode of MacGyver, and he frequently carried that in other Tinkers and tinkered this and tinkered that. And Climber. He carried a lot of stuff except for the heavy equipment. And I suspect it would have been this one. This is the one that would have been available right up to about 1985. Still had the square Phillips, but it had the pen blade instead of a clip point. I mean, really, if he was a diehard Swiss Army knife guy, he would have had his for quite a while by then. You know, I like to imagine MacGyver is the kind of guy that, like, you know, his dad or somebody gave him a Swiss Army knife when he was 12 and he carries it for the rest of his life. But, I mean, he had a different Swiss Army knife in every episode. He might have different Swiss Army knives in a different scene in the same episode. So, how about that? Maybe he just carried a bunch of them in his pocket. Who knows? It's a TV show. Don't get that upset about it. Come on. It's not that big a deal. Speaking of Hofferts, we've got what here is a fantastic little guy, the Master Craftsman. And 1 second, let me wheel over here. Fuck you. Oops, sorry, pardon my French. I bumped into something I didn't want to bump into. Get this guy out of there. Come on, guy. Back over there. I mean, this is where editing would help, but screw all that noise. So anyway, we've got our Hofferts Master Craftsman. This would have been towards the end of the period where it was actually an inlay rather than stamped. So you can see what happens to the inlays after many years and what happens to the stamp after many years. I mean, here is a Super Tinker with a stamp in much better condition, but that's still a stamp that just happens to be handled. And I polished that one up. I just didn't polish. I polished around the Hofferts. What a novel idea to not just plow right over the whole damn thing. So, what do we got in this 91 millimeter 5-layer Bad Bear? We've got the toothpick. We've got, oh, look at that, the tweezers with the aluminum head. Fantastic. Gotta love that. We've got, again, one of my favorites, that square Phillips driver with the can key. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind. I think I already lost that a long time ago. And what do we got here? Oh, look at that. We got the old version of the fine screwdriver. Interestingly enough, I had this other Master Craftsman right here. This one is from the early 70s. Does not have that fine screwdriver, which is on the same layer as the file. Shares a spring with the file. So that's a pretty cool little change. It happened at some point, probably the mid-70s. And let's get on to the top. We've got, oh, it's a cap lifter. Imagine that. Got a flathead screwdriver and a stripping notch. And, I mean, the hits just keep on coming. We've got our can opener. You know, 2D Phillips, small flathead. I think I've said it before. I'll say it again. Great little tool there. Come on, Minnie. Come on, you gotta go. I love you, baby. You're getting in the way of my show here. Next layer. Oh, yeah, we did the can opener. We've got the outstanding 91 millimeter scissors. And something that threw me a little bit with these is, I'll give you a second to think about what don't look quite right about this. Now, I'm certain this is a factory spring, but what is interesting about it is that it is, how you say, wonky. Look at the spring on these scissors. Look at that one. The little tip is bent in the opposite direction. And I've looked at it pretty closely. It doesn't look like this is somebody cobbled together, you know, out of a broken like double spring or whatever. It just looks like it was made that way. I assume it was, I know you know, off the top of my head, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure there's ones that have the scissors reversed for various reasons. And perhaps it's for that, and they just used the wrong spring. I don't know. Either way, works just fine. Does the job it's supposed to do. Springs it back into place. Then we've got that aggressive wood saw. Great saw. I was doing some cutting with one the other day, just messing around, and man, they really ripped through. They moved some wood. Seriously do. Great design. Great saw. You know, going back to my days as an electrician, you spend a lot of time cutting little holes in sheetrock for boxes, and this, I should have carried one back then, but I wasn't as hip to Swiss Army knives back then. I just wasn't as cool of a cat as I am now. Luckily, don't tell my mouse I'm a cat. She'll be afraid. We got the metal saw with the file, with the little metal teeth on the edge. Yeah, you're not gonna like cut anything super hard with it, but it's a nice file to have. Has that cleaning tip on it. I'll show it again since I love showing this knife off, but you can see here is the old style file without the cleaning tip, where the file just cross cuts just go all the way to the tip. Fan-friggin-tastic. Boom. And then what do we got here? Oh, it's a pen blade. Of course it is. But I don't mind. You know, it's a trade-off between having this pen blade and having the little screwdriver on the back. So I'll take it. And, you know, for having the Hoffert's inlay, I'll let that one slide just this once, eBay. You got me again. And then what do we got here? Here's the coup d'etat. That Hoffert stamp. It just makes me happy seeing different stamps, man. It don't take much. I don't get into the super micro difference. Like, I don't care if you're looking at a classic SD versus a bijou, or a traveler versus a climber, or woodsman versus a huntsman, because they lack either the key ring or the scale tools. To me, that's a silly. They're like it's like you know, an upgrade package to a car. It's like having a 97 F-150 and a 97 F-150 XLT. You know, there's just a little difference, little upgrade, a few pennies more. Switzerland stainless Rost Fry, outstanding, and that is it. Beauty Grizz.